It's a new month, and that means it is time for my monthly new product roundup and giveaway. Every month, myself and my co-host here, Blunty. How you doing, Blunty?
Good, Joshua. How's it going?
It's doing really good. I'm very excited to look at some of the products that came out in the last month, give you our quick impressions of them, and just basically let you know there's cool stuff out there that you might want to look into a little further. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to announce one product that we're going to do a giveaway. And usually we give away 3 or 4 of them just to spread the love around. I haven't even decided what it's going to be yet, Blunty, so we'll be thinking about it during the video.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's dive right into it. And we sort of organized the list this month. And the first category that we're going to look at is new, like bind and fly quadcopters. And the first one that I think people are most excited about is this little guy, the Flywoo Firefly.
Yeah, this is their, basically this is Flywoo's new hexacopter, 1.6-inch hexacopter. So I don't know that we've ever really seen a product like this, certainly not recently.
Well, they developed the 6-in-1 ESC for their Hexplorer. It's a 16 millimeter board with 6 motor outputs, which just kind of blew my mind. I think it's the only 6-in-1 ESC I know of in existence and in a 16 millimeter form factor. And I guess maybe they figured as long as they had the freaking thing, they'd do something else. This product is undeniably cool. Like, just look, Bachgrinder in his review, he was like, it's a tiny hexacopter. What do you need to know? Just go buy it. But I keep asking myself, like, is there really a point to it?
I don't know. I think it looks like a lot of the people are talking about it as like holding a GoPro, like a full-size GoPro, because it's got so much thrust to weight.
For real.
Yeah, but
have people flown it with a full-size GoPro, like an actual hero on it?
I think they're flying it with like a super light hero, or they're flying it with like a decased,
like a naked GoPro. I could see that. So is it just like the idea is it's the smallest platform you can with a naked GoPro?
I think so, pretty much. I mean, yeah, you're not going to get that much thrust on this on this area of a quad, I think, unless you step up a little bit.
Oh, there you go. There's Gal Kremer's video with a BetaFPV Insta360 naked not Insta360 Go SMO 4K. Yeah, it certainly does look like they're flying them with a naked GoPro. I mean, you got to ask yourself how the handling characteristics will be. When I flew the 4-inch hexacopter, I thought that there certainly was a little bit more weight carrying capacity, and you were kind of getting a little bit of the handling maybe of a 5-inch, not the agility, but the weight carrying capacity of a larger quad in a smaller package. So I guess if you need the absolute smallest package, then this might be it. It feels a little bit like a novelty to me, though.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see like how it plays out if people are using these on the regular, or like you said, if this is kind of just a novelty.
Yeah. Yep. Anyway, it's still undeniably a pretty cool product. And if, by the way, before we go further, if you guys are interested in picking up any of these products or researching them further, there are links down in the video description, of course. They are affiliate links. That's one of the ways that I support the channel. You just click those links, you make any purchase, and I get a small commission. In addition to that, I need to say, like right now we're looking at a Race Day Quads listing. There are links to a whole bunch of stores that carry these products, and I always just kind of pick one store to show. I don't want to appear to show any favoritism or leave anybody out, but there's links all down there to all the different stores. So moving on. Well, Blunty, the next thing I want to look at isn't actually a quadcopter, but it was released by Flywoo with the Firefly, I think, because it was listed next to it on Race Day Quads. And this is a combination compass and barometer. So these things are often built into a flight controller, but if they're not built into the flight controller, you can really struggle to like use iNav, and it can be difficult to add. So I guess the idea here is that this is just a little all-in-one board that you can connect to your flight controller.
Yeah, I mean, for anything that doesn't have it, it does seem kind of neat. And for, I guess if you want to do some iNav builds or some kind of specialized build, this would actually be pretty convenient.
Yeah. A lot of people say, like my flight controller, it has an I2C pad broken out, so you could use a compass, but it doesn't have a barometer on board, and the aftermarket barometers are a little bit more difficult to find, I guess. So here's just an all-in-one solution. If you want to use iNav with a flight controller that doesn't have a barometer and compass, maybe this seems like a good solution. Haven't used it in person, but the next one I want to look at, Blunty, is the HGLRC Rekon Nano Long Range FPV Quad. I've heard this thing called a flying 18650 battery.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what it seems like, right?
Right.
I love this concept. We've talked about this in the news before, but I love this concept. This is so cool to like snap a battery in, just saying, and fly.
Yeah.
I just think it's so fascinating. And this is from Rekon, so it's the same as Dave-C FPV, who's doing the 5-inch and some different cool things from him. So yeah, this is just another one of his cool quads. I think this is a neat idea, and I would love to see more of this idea of like snapping a battery in, less connectors, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Just because it's easy to fly, it's fun, and it's a lot simpler, you know?
That does seem to be the point of this. People have asked, well, what about the durability? How is it going to crash? Can you freestyle it? And by the way, I have this. I actually was going to fly it this week, but the 18650 cells that I have, I got them. They're like low output cells. They're cheap cells because I just use them for my goggles. And then I put it on the quad. I armed the quad. And as I raised the throttle and take off, the whole quad shut down because the battery couldn't. So I had to order some new batteries. But I am going to be testing and reviewing this on the channel. Make sure you guys are subscribed and hit the notification bell. Oh, you see how I worked that in, Blunty?
Yeah. You can actually, I was going to say, you can actually print these as well. There's some companies that sell the 3D printed frames, and you can actually print the frame yourself. It's available, I believe, on Thingiverse. And then you could just buy the holder and build them yourself too. So the platform's kind of open and available. Yeah, I don't know. I was literally just at the park today thinking about how much I hate connectors and cables and trying to organize around props and stuff. So this stuff is just so much fun.
Yeah, the point of this quad, that's what I was starting to get at, is just to be able to pull it out. It's tiny. It could go anywhere with you in your back, practically go in your pocket. Snap a battery in, boom, you're up, you're flying, you're cruising around. You're not ripping balls, but you're just having a nice time. And it's really nice that Dave-C is designed, like somebody like Evan Turner or Min Chen Kim designs a quad, and they want to go as fast as possible, Here, Dave-C is just out there like, let's just cruise around for a while. It's all cool. Hey, why don't we use an 18650? It's really cool. So yeah. I'm looking forward to getting to fly this.
Absolutely. So next up, we're going to check out a new ready-to-fly kit from BetaFPV. And originally, when I saw this FPV kit, I wasn't super blown away. This is kind of like another starter kit from BetaFPV. And
it looks just like their advanced kit.
Yeah, we've talked before about kind of how qualities are issues, and maybe you don't want to use the transmitters to start, and the goggles aren't great, but maybe they're intro options and stuff. So I was back and forth, but I actually took a closer look at this, and this seems to be a competitor to the Emax Easy Pilot, but they've actually brought a little bit more to the table. They've actually added to this quad. They have a position hold that's like a true within about a meter position hold based on optical flow and laser.
Wow. Yeah, I've flown the Emax Easy Pilot. I didn't actually do a review of it, but I was super impressed with how good its position hold was indoors. And I don't know if the Easy Pilot uses optical flow or if it's just well-tuned.
Yeah, when I looked up the Easy Pilot, the only reference I could find was just barometer. So it was just tuning and barometer based on that with accelerometer, I think.
Crazy.
So it seems like with this, they're adding in, they're doing height with the laser positioning, and then they're doing positioning with optical flow in that laser and the barometer that's on it as well. So kind of the all-in-one solution. I think maybe they're getting away with this because they're using their own custom build of silverware. They're using their own light silver system.
Gotcha. So this is flying silverware, not Betaflight or iNav. That's a firmware that's especially tailored for micros. So we could hope that it flies well. Obviously, we haven't tested this, but I'll be very interested to see how this handles in real life. Just because something has optical flow and laser doesn't mean it's been tuned well or that it's going to work well, but we potentially give them the benefit of the doubt. This is a really cool option for beginners.
And just something to mention, the same thing with the Easy Pilot, but this is brushed. So, if you're trying to get into this the hobby know that you're buying a brush quad versus a brushless quad, and there's pros and cons to those as well.
I mean, if you're buying something with position hold to learn on, I don't think that's I don't think you really care about that.
That's fair.
What you might care about, though, is, like, we know that when BetaFPV products work, they work well, but a lot of times, maybe more than they should, they don't work. Like, you'll get the gimbals on the light radio have a known issue with the solder joints breaking. And too many people are having to open up their light radio and resolder those joints. So it's a cool product. Maybe it's a good product to buy, but I would say anytime you buy a product like that, buy it from a store who's, you know, they're going to have your back. Like, I'm showing the BetaFPV website right now, and maybe if you live in the USA, you might buy from a Race Day Quads and GetFPV, a Pyrodrone, who's more likely to actually take care of you if it's DOA. Well, I guess as long as we're talking about products that maybe you should buy, or maybe you would have some hesitation to buy, let's talk about the new Eachine Wizard X220. The Eachine Wizard X220, so many people have gotten into the hobby with this quadcopter, and yet it is objectively such a bad quadcopter. Am I wrong about that, Blenty?
Not at all. No, I mean, it's basically the bare minimum. You know, it's kind of what it feels like to get into the hobby. You know, it was kind of old when it started, and then just got older as it stayed stagnant. Yeah. And so that's kind of actually why I was excited for the product that we're looking at. But then I took a closer look, and unfortunately, I think we got somehow we've shifted in time, but it's not by much.
Yeah, this there's some things they certainly did right. The camera on it is the Foxeer Oreo, and I have been it's a $20 camera. Sometimes you can get it on sale for even cheaper than that. It is a very solid camera for $20. It is probably the best budget bargain camera you can get, but it's been that for 2 years. It's not a new camera. So, okay, I'm not going to judge it just because it's old. The flight controller, I don't know what flight controller they're using. It's not the same SPRacing F3 that they were using, though, so they've updated that to, I presume, an F4, yes. The motors and the ESCs look the same.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's like, they've pulled like a F405 DJI flight controller, but it's a analog quad, which doesn't really make that much difference. It's just like kind of adds to the feel I get from this, which is a sort of off the shelf, whatever we had extra sort of quad.
Yeah, kind of a part spin quad, if you will.
Yeah, and then also they're using a PDB, so they have a PDB to connect the 4 single ESCs because the FC is not an AIO FC, so it doesn't have the connection pads. There's
nothing wrong with any of this, but so the ESCs actually, I'm going to assume they're using the same ESCs that they used to use on the original Wizard. They look the same. I don't know that for a fact, but if that's true, those are terrible ESCs. They just die for no reason. So that's one of the, and there's going to be people out there who said, I got a Wizard and it was fine. You were just one of the ones who didn't get hit with the shotgun pellet, right? But a lot of people had this experience. What kills me with this one, though, what kills this one for me is for $200, there are much better quadcopters out there. And I did a video about this. Like, what do you think of, Blunty?
I think I'm thinking the Nazgul's close to that. Not sure what the Roma's running for, but there's just quite a few options in that area. Yeah,
and they're a little more expensive. They might be $210, maybe $220 or $30 or even $240, but they are really, really good quads with good durability. And what the Wizard has always had going for it, and we can see this right here, is that you can buy it in a kit. It comes with the controller. That's a $40 controller, so no big deal, but it comes ready to go. You plug in the battery, you flip the arm switch, and you can fly. And if this was available in such a kit, maybe there'd be a place for it for the people who just don't want to deal with that. But at least I saw on Drone Mesh's channel, he had the kit. So I think it exists, but it's not available yet. And I wouldn't spend $200 on this quad at all.
Yeah, I think there's just a lot of better options. And honestly, nowadays too, it's like, even if you don't, I know a lot of people want to buy in a kit, but it's actually pretty easy to buy out of a kit at this point. Because everything, if you buy a better quality quad like a Nazgul or something, it's going to have a pretty easy bind process and stuff. And I know people want out of the box, but I just think like for a little bit extra and a small amount of extra work, you can get a much better value. So
yeah, I agree. So I'll put a link down in the video description. There's timestamps and product links. I'll put a link to the video I made about this quad, and there's links to some other quads you might look at that I reviewed that you might want to get instead.
All right, so luckily the X220 V2 is not the only option Eachine has for us. They have another new, actually a kit out, and that's going to be the Eachine Novice 4, a 4-inch, actually they're targeting as a sub 250 long range micro setup.
Yeah, this is a really cool category. I did a bunch of reviews of a bunch of 4-inch long range quads a while back. They're really fun for cruising. You can get very long flight times. I like that they've included the Jumper TX12, which is a very good controller. So they haven't cut any corners there. Do you know anything? Like the Novice this is the 4th generation of the Novice. Have you heard anything about the Novice 3, 2, or 1? Are they any good?
No, I honestly am not super familiar with the Novice. I was going to mention real quick, though, that the EV800 DMs are also not bad. The EV800Ds have a splittable screen, but other than that, I think the DMs are fairly close to that. Maybe a little worse in quality. But yeah, they're not giving you total garbage in this kit, I don't think. So that's, yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, but I'm not super familiar with the quad. From the look of the build, it doesn't seem to be too bad for the value you're getting here, just because, like you said, you get that TX12. That's quite a bit of extra value, and the goggles will go pretty far. So.
Yeah, the Eachine EV800D has been my recommendation for years. It's about $80, I think. And if you want to just get into FPV, I mean, it's obviously not a super premium product, but it has the value and it has a sufficiently good experience, decent reliability. The DM is the next version of the goggle. I feel like in this kit, like you're getting, let's add up the numbers. The Eachine DM is an $80 or $100 roughly.
Yeah, like
the
80.
TX 80. Jumper TX12 is $90. So you're in the $180 range there. We've got some batteries. Okay, maybe those are $10 batteries. They're probably not super premium batteries, but who cares? You got a quadcopter. I feel like this thing comes in at around $400, which is a lot because you can get like a Tiny Hawk kit for $200, but it's a much smaller quadcopter with a much crappier controller. I feel like this might actually be okay.
Yeah, at a 4-inch, this isn't that bad. I think, if you look at the value of the quad, you're paying $200 for the quad, which may or may not be worth like around that price. But I think with everything together in a ready-to-fly kit, I think that makes it much more appealing. Like you talked about with the last, with the X220 V2, I think if that comes in a kit, it becomes more appealing even if maybe the value isn't amazing.
Yeah. You raise a good point. I mean, you could buy the TX12, the EV800 DM, and you could take your pick of 4-inch long-range quads like the Flywoo Explorer, etc. They probably are a little better than the Eachine Novice, and you come in under $400, but it wouldn't be all ready to go, and you wouldn't save that much, really.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. Well, good job, Eachine. We like some of your products. All right, moving on. Let's see. You want to introduce the Pavo30? You know anything about it?
I don't. I assume it's their logical progression of their 95X, right? That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's how about that for our segue?
Okay. That worked.
What is it? Let's have something intelligent to say about it. How does it compare to the 95X?
That's what I'm pulling up here, yeah.
F7 flight controller, 5-blade props. Why did they not just call it 1505 motors?
Maybe it's a step up from the 95X. Let's see, 95X V3.
That's 95X is 1404, I think. And it was smaller motors even than that.
Yeah, 1404, 4500.
Yeah.
That's the V3. It's a 1506. And let's see, hold on. 99.1 grams without a battery for the 95X V3. 145 grams.
Oh, that's a big step up.
Big
difference. That's way heavier. I mean, it's got bigger motors, but it still has 3-inch props. The 95X Is that
It's
2.5
not.
inch?
It's 2.5 inch props. Yeah.
Oh, so it's just a 3-inch 95X with 5-blade props.
Yes.
More or less. Like. All right. Well, there you go. We're not going to go back and reshoot that. And we're just going to leave the segue as it was. So it looks like this is the BetaFPV Pavo30, which is a 3-inch version of the BetaFPV 95X. Larger motors, 5-blade props, heavier, but presumably more thrust as well. I think 3-inch. I always thought the 95X was. You really have to want a tiny cinewhoop to go down, because those 2.5-inch props are so much worse. And those small motors are so much worse than even 3-inch.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, this seems to be the logical progression. Like we said at the beginning, like it does seem like to be the step forward for the 95X. Like, why are we fighting Jello and doing the 95X thing for 3 versions? Let's just step it up. So this does make a lot of sense for me.
Feels to me like 3-inch to 3.5-inch is just about the perfect size for a cinewhoop. As you get up to 4-inch, you're starting to get big enough that flying indoors is a little more challenging. It's louder. You bounce off the walls a little more aggressively. And a 4-inch cinewhoop to me feels more like it's for like light chasing outdoors following a skateboarder, where the 3-inch might not have so much top end. So I think this is a great move for them. And the 95X, I never really loved it that much.
Sure. Also, just remember, for anybody who's looking to get into a cinewhoop versus a standard cinewhoop, this is going to have maybe more breakable ducts or maybe not. I'd be interested to see how these work out, because these look like maybe injection molded props.
Yeah,
or injection molded prop guards.
Yeah, for sure. Whereas like the TPU prop guards or ducts used on like a proper cinewhoop are going to be way more durable.
Yes.
I imagine anything rigid like this is going to be more likely to break. We got one more quadcopter to talk about this week, or this month, and that is the iFlight Chimera5 Long Range. So iFlight is moving into, I guess people were doing ultra lightweight 4-inch long range builds. And iFlight was like, well, let's do a 5-inch lightweight long range build. What jumps out to you about this one, Plenty?
Not too much. It seems like they're kind of doing like you said, just stepping up kind of with their thing. It's kind of interesting. This is 2005 motors, 2005 motors, on this. So
smaller, lighter motors that are going to have less torque. They're not going to have the handling and response for like freestyle, but that's not the point. Trying to get the weight down and extend flight times. Dead cat layout, so no props in view. At least you would hope. That's the whole point of a dead cat layout. Get flight times above 25 minutes using lithium ion 4S 3000 packs. So the idea is that the amp draw is low enough that you can run it off these lithium ion packs and not sort of kill them, and get long flight times.
Yeah, so it's also going to come with a GPS rescue like the other long range quads do. Everything's all set up. So
13 to 16 minutes they advertise with a full GoPro. They say full GoPro, presumably. Yeah, they show a GoPro Hero 8 on here, so you don't have to go to a naked GoPro. With these lightweight quads, it's always a question of whether there's going to be like jello or vibrations. Hopefully iFlight can see that coming and handle that. It's got T-mount 5-inch props. Okay, well, keep an eye out on that.
All right, so let's move away from bind and fly quads, from different built quads. So we're going to start looking at some different components. So we'll take a look at some radios. The FrSky Tandem X20 and X20S is coming out on the market. So their new access radio with their ETH SOS on the radio. And yeah, this is the one that was going to have an HD version with that we talked about a little bit, that will eventually have some kind of low latency video link.
Yeah, to be clear, this version of the radio is available for purchase now, but the HD version, people are guessing that it must be the same Divimath chip that's used in SharkBite. So people are guessing that it'll be the same tech as SharkBite. That's not available. Two things. I mean, obviously the build quality of this radio is really good. We know FrSky can build good radios. We've seen them do that. The big controversial decision about this radio is to go from OpenTX to this EthOS. What do you think about that?
I'm not sure. It's hard to know exactly what their plan is or why they're making that decision. But yeah, I don't think it's good for most pilots. I don't think most people are gonna like most FPV pilots are gonna be interested in a new OS that's like from FrSky that's not like open and supported on everything and that needs new tutorials and all these kind of things, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely people out there who would say OpenTX is a huge learning curve. It's a struggle. And if this was easier to use and easier to set up, then that would be a benefit. The difference is that there's a huge body of knowledge and tutorials to help you with learning how to use OpenTX. And it applies no matter which radio you get. OpenTX, I mean, it looks a little different on a small screen than a big screen, but a tutorial can be done on basically any OpenTX radio, which to me seems like a big advantage. As far as why, I mean, I think the reason why FrSky did this is pretty obvious, right? Because they don't like other people being able to use their technology and compete with them, so they wanna lock it down. That's how I read it.
So yeah, it's unfortunate that they would make that decision, like if that's why they made that decision. But you know, that's kind of where we're at. And just back to the point of like usability of the radio and the operating system, like you'd have to make it so usable, I think. Like you'd have to make it so easy for someone to use that like all the special features have to be taken care of. So if a user wants to do extra stuff with telemetry, or if a user wants to change, you know, even some settings with like how things are mixed in the mixer, you know, those might not be obviously presented to the user. And instead, you need some tutorial for that. And if they're not providing that knowledge base, then that means that there's a whole big gap here where people are going to have to figure it out and learn and share. And then how many people have these radios? Yeah, there's just so many reasons I think that's a bad idea. And the reason why a lot of these companies choose OpenTX.
Yeah. Well, it feels to me like this is like FrSky is trying to horn in on Spectrum and Futaba space. This feels to me like a big, expensive radio for airplane guys.
Sure. And
they don't care about OpenTX, right? They just don't. It's not the same. It doesn't seem like it. Well, airplane guys who fly OpenTX, I apologize. The one other thing I want to say about this radio before we move on, Blunty, what if you want to run Crossfire? What if you want to run Ghost? What if you want to run Tracer or ExpressLRS? FrSky has said that they are open to working with other manufacturers to integrate that stuff, but under what conditions? Do you really think FrSky is going to build a Crossfire compatibility into this radio? I would be shocked.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see on that, but that's a great point. You know,
Does
it even come? I mean, it has to come with something, right? Is it just going to be like S-Bus and PPM? Like, you know, are they going to have some kind of like Dragon Link or whatever, like the plane guys use?
Well, it's dual band, so it's going to have R9 and access. Right. It's going to have access 2.4 gig and R9.
So they're just going to expect you to use their stuff, yeah.
Of course they are. And why would you expect any different? Well, depends on your mindset. All right, moving on. From that, there's another little piece of controller-based news, and that is, this is the RadioMaster T8. It looks like a competitor to the Jumper T18. It's a gamepad-style radio at a budget price point. Interestingly, this comes with two versions. One of them is a no-screen version for $60. Presumably, it plugs into your computer, and you can use OpenTX Companion to configure it, because we can see the RadioMaster T8 Pro has a little removable screen that it looks to me like it's running the full version of OpenTX. Here we'll take a closer look at the screen. I think what RadioMaster has said is that most of the time you're not using the screen very much. You're just flying. So they like the idea that you could sort of take it off when you're not using it and save some space. It's kind of cool.
We should mention as well, I think this is also, there's also an iFlight IF8. I think you can buy that too.
Is it the same radio?
Which is another clone of this radio, yeah.
Oh, nice. Got a multi-protocol module in there, the CC2500 chip. So that means it's going to be FrSky, Radiolink, Gropner Hot. That looks like it's not the 4-in-1 with Spectrum and so forth. So they're saving about $10 by doing that.
Yeah.
It's okay. Crossfire compatible? I mean, does it have a module bay?
I don't think so. I think it's just the plug-in spot for this for the screen.
Oh, okay.
I did a pin count on this a while back, and I don't think the pins match like what a module bay pinout would be.
Oh, interesting. That's got a cool little trigger here. That's kind of cool.
I think they're like handholds, but yeah, you don't.
Oh,
see
is that not a? That's not a like a pot, like a slider.
No, I think they're just like holds for the hand.
Oh, I take back what I said. Micro SD card slot voice support. Doesn't say anything about a module bay. RF module. D8, D16. Oh, I see. Oh no, this is the full CC2500 versus just FrSky.
Yes, yes, you get the one chip versus just the two options, I guess.
Yeah, okay, but still no Spectrum FlySky. I saw a picture here that I wanted. There we go. It doesn't look like there's a module bay. Seems like a pretty obvious oversight. I'm sure the comments are going to tell us whether we're right or wrong about this. But if it didn't have a module bay, to me that would be a big mark in favor of the Jumper T18, whose module bay is not without problems, but at least it does exist.
Jumper T8, right?
The T-Lite.
T-Lite, okay.
The T-Lite. I'm sorry, that's what I meant to say.
So something else we wanted to show you real quick. It's been kind of difficult to find some of the RadioMaster stuff. We just wanted to let you know that GetFPV is now stocking all those RadioMaster products, so you can source them from there if that's where you wanted to get them.
Yeah, especially this hardware. If you've got a RadioMaster TX16S and you wanted to upgrade it to the metal part set that is used on the Max, you can get that part set for only $60. You got to install it yourself, of course. This, to me, seems like an obvious move. FPV Crate has been like one of the most complete RadioMaster dealers in the USA, and they're a sister company to GetFPV, so it always surprised me that GetFPV didn't sell RadioMaster more aggressively, including these receivers, which FrSky sent them a cease and desist over patent infringement, and some of these receivers are actually, I'm not sure how they're still selling them, but there you go.
Yeah, I was going to say, it seems like they're stock on the 161, but I'm going to guess if you ordered that 168, it's not going to get back ordered.
Yeah, no, that's not coming back.
All right, so now let's take a look at one of my most anticipated products. I'm really excited to show this. So PyroDrone is now stocking the HappyModel 2.4 gigahertz ExpressLRS receivers and modules. So now you can get the TX and 3 different RXs from HappyModel from PyroDrone and a couple different retailers, but PyroDrone seems to be the main stocker of them in the US. So.
And this is really exciting because this is not the 900 megahertz ExpressLRS that you may have heard of. And I'm not 100% sure why, Blunty, but whenever ExpressLRS guys talk about this, they're like, that 900 megahertz stuff, 2.4 gigs where you want to be.
And I think the main reason is because, like we've talked about before, like Wes's tests, like if you're on a decent power on ExpressLRS 2.4 gigahertz and you're even running a high packet rate, you can get, 10, 20, 30 kilometers without a failsafe. So I think it's just like, hey, why don't you just buy 2.4 unless you're trying to fight with the curve of the earth, Right.
You get plenty of range, smaller antennas. In fact, speaking of smaller antennas, this is one of the most exciting things about this to me, is this little guy is a ceramic antenna. That's the whole antenna. You do not need to solder anything or clip anything on. This is just a completely self-contained receiver. I think it weighs does it weigh less than a gram?
Yeah, they're 0.4. Yeah, 0.44.
Oh my god! So for people looking for the absolute smallest and lightest build, the range can't be as good as a full wire antenna, right?
Definitely isn't as good as a full wire antenna, but it is quite good. I think it's like -3 dB or -5 dB, something like that. So it's not crazy as far as like the loss that you get from this. It's more about positioning and where you can fit it so that you get a similar outlook from your from your goggles.
Yeah. So let's say it was
radio.
If it was 6 dB weaker, that would be half the range. But if your starting range is 30 kilometers, then losing half of it isn't that big of a deal, maybe, some people would argue, especially if you're focused on racing or if you're doing tiny whoop stuff. And then, as you said, placement in the frame. If you bury it inside a big long-range cruiser versus maybe putting it on a tiny whoop where there's just nothing in the way. So, right tool for the right job.
Yeah, so the primary reason for these is pretty much like line-of-sight racing, but you can fly kind of wherever you would normally freestyle. I have personally done that, and it seems to be pretty good. But yeah, it's very exciting to see these antennas. And then if you don't want to use this, there's also the EP1, which is the same receiver, but that is going to have a IPEX connector on it instead, and that'll come with some antennas for you to snap on there. And then just so we are clear on the difference, so there's 3 different receiver options here. There's a PP, an EP1, and an EP2. So the only difference between these really is that the PP uses an STM32 processor, which are becoming much more difficult to find. So I think HappyModel made a run of them, but I don't know how long they'll last, and that's why they cost more, because the STM32s are a little bit more difficult. And you actually get a benefit if you purchase the EP1 or EP2, as those use an EP32 processor, and that processor has Wi-Fi on it, so you can actually do Wi-Fi updates, where you can only do pass-through on the PP.
Yeah, being able to flash over Wi-Fi like via a phone app or your laptop is pretty freaking cool. Yeah, and the price is ridiculous. So this is really exciting stuff.
Excellent. Yeah, you could basically get a Micro TX module, and you can get 3 receivers for less than you would pay for like a Micro TX module from most of the other large companies. So,
if you are interested in getting started with ExpressLRS, I have a tutorial about how to flash ExpressLRS. This is 900 megahertz. I'm working with FrSky R9 hardware because a lot of people have that laying around, but the principles at least are the same, and I'll put a link to that in the video description. Next, let's move to talking about ESCs and flight controllers. And the first thing I want to look at this month is a couple of good 20 millimeter ESCs. I recently built a racing drone with a 20 millimeter ESC in it. And I specifically wanted one that would not blow up when I tried to turtle mode. And so I started researching like the most durable. And the one that I ended up using plenty was the Redux Air. The Redux Air. You can find out more about that. I'll put a link to that build video down in the video description. But that one, it's not a new product, and it's actually not available. It's out of stock right now. So let's take a look at a couple others. And the first one is the Aikon AK32 Pro. Aikon has always been known for making very, very good ESCs. And this one was recommended by some racers as being super durable. You have any experience with it?
No, but I've heard lots of great things about this specific ESC for racers. I think they've been running these Aikons for a while. And yeah, they're super durable for the load and work you put on them for racing. So yeah, this seems to be a great option.
Great. Yeah, there are a couple others that look like this, but they're not. There's like a 50 and a 55 amp version, and there's also like a 30 amp version. I think we're specifically talking about, Ciati says, the one with the heat sink on it, which you're looking at now.
Yes.
The next one I want to bring up is the Foxeer Reaper. And this one is new, and I can't vouch for it, but it does look like a pretty interesting. Anytime I see that they're hanging over the 20 millimeter mounting, I think it's a 20 millimeter ESC, but it's got like maybe larger FETs, more capacitors, and maybe a little more durable. And then this one, Blenty, you brought. So why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah, so this is the new Diatone. I believe it's the Race ESC that they're calling it. But yeah, this is basically, if the last one was not 20 by 20, this is really not 20 by 20.
Right.
They basically have hid a 30 by 30 ESC, or what looks like it, inside of a 20 by 20 like heatsink sandwich. This is actually pretty neat, because I don't think we've seen anything like this before, where they've actually physically separated and there's no holes through the ESC board. It's like literally just wrapped in this heatsink, and that's where the holes are.
Yeah, very, very clever way of making that smaller, not lighter. I mean, if your goal with a 20 millimeter ESC is to be as light as possible, this isn't it. But if your goal is to be smaller without compromising durability, you would hope that this would be there. Presumably, they're using larger FETs, although I guess we can't know that without like taking one apart.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I would hope so. But yeah, with the Race, I know, like we looked at before, like Ciati said, the one with the heatsink, I think a lot of the benefit of these Race ESCs, or at least a few of them, is that you're getting that heatsink to wick away a lot of the heat that would be burning out your FETs on these like high drive like scenarios.
Yeah. One thing to keep in mind with this one is you will not be able to do a long screw through the center like many people do. You will need to have a short screw that basically screws into it, and then another sort of, what do they have, studs on the top? How do they even do it? Yeah, they might have some kind of studs, or, the screw goes down through the top. So basically you're going to sandwich it in between two screws, which some people might object to, but that's pretty freaking cool. There's 2 versions of this. There's a 60 and a 75 amp version. So just take your pick.
Yeah.
Speaking of Diatone, we've got a new video transmitter from Diatone, the Diatone Mamba TX1000. I'm always excited when I see a video transmitter that claims to do 1 watt or more, because as a freestyle pilot, I like penetration. Sorry, that just came out that way. This looks like a Panda RC. I swear to God, this looks just like a Panda RC, doesn't it?
Yeah, it kind of does. Certainly a lot of heatsink wick in a way, but yeah, it does look very similar.
Well, this is Panda RC's 1 watt VTX, and they build it with a fan on it. It's a very similar, like it looks very similar, doesn't it?
I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's like an inset, like, yeah, screw into the heatsink sort of deal.
Yeah. Makes me wonder if that's who's making this one. They have another VTX that's smaller. It's not a 1 watt though. Anyway, give that a shot. You never know. 1 watt is good.
So here's another Diatone product. We'll check out their new Mamba F411 Whoop Flight Controller, AIO. I think this one's pretty neat because they've kind of catered to a certain market on this one, I think. They've got a separated USB cable, and basically you could actually solder on either one, so you could have a USB-C or USB micro because it's separated. But the main idea, I think, here is to be able to mount in an easier accessible place for a tight build your USB port access.
If you have a cinewhoop or any other quadcopter where getting at the USB port is difficult, this might be a great way to go. Just mount that USB with double-sided tape or a 3D printed holder and be able to get at it. And also, there's no risk of breaking it off the board, which is something people definitely do.
Yeah.
All right.
It's also kind of interesting as like an idea for conformal coding, you know, because you could conformal code the board and not have to worry about the USB port.
Nice. Yeah, that's a good point. Well, let's keep talking about flight controllers now. The next one is the T-Motor Velox F722. Velox is, I was about to say if Velox is T-Motor's budget line, but that's Pacer. So then what's Velox?
Oh, I don't know. Budget line part 2. I'm not sure, actually.
The T-Motor Velox F722, it's a $40 F7 flight controller. Got some UARTs on it. It'll go with your T-Motor ESC. If you've already got a T-Motor, let's say you bought a T-Motor F55, it's a great ESC, and then you blew your flight controller and you don't want to spend whatever, $50 on that expensive T-Motor flight controller. Well, here's a great way to get a T-Motor flight controller and save a little money. Anything else jump out? Built-in Bluetooth? Built-in OS? Go ahead.
Yeah, it has a 10-volt 3-amp back too for the Vista, even though it doesn't have a plug for it, which I think is cool. So
yeah, 3-amp, 10-volt. That's impressive. Nice. You can always solder it up. It's no big deal if it doesn't have a plug. Well, from a flight controller that I was kind of like, meh, you know, whatever, it exists, to a flight controller that I know a lot of people are going to be very excited to hear about, because CLRacing has a huge following out there. And it's been a long time since they updated their CLRacing F7. But now they have. This is a new DJI-capable flight controller from CLRacing. And you can get it with a dual gyro or a single gyro, the venerable MPU6000. So it's kind of your choice. Do you believe in the power of sensor fusion, or do you think that 2 gyros is just twice as many components to fail? What do you think, Blenty?
I don't know. I think it's kind of weird they're selling them at the same price, because I would definitely probably.
Oh, you're right.
I would take the dual over the single.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
You could always just pick one, and
exactly.
You know, sensor fusion, I believe, mathematically always works out better because you don't know the variance on your single gyro. So, yeah, well, I would definitely take the dual.
The argument I've heard against sensor fusion, and sensor fusion is where like you have 2 gyros on the flight controller, and then there's some math that lets you get better performance when you have 2 gyros that you can sort of average. But the argument is that there's no way to know if one of the gyros has kind of failed in giving you garbage data. And that does happen. The gyros do fail because we crash these things into the ground at 70 miles an hour. And when a gyro fails, now you're mixing garbage data in with your good data and your quad starts flying like crap. But my argument is you can just go into beta flight and you can turn off one of the gyros if you prefer.
Sure.
So it's
and
like
50%, and in that case, there's a 50% chance that like on the single gyro flight controller, you would have lost the gyro.
And so your whole FC, right.
Yeah, there's no gyro. So
right. So it seems to me like if you would buy the single gyro version, you should just buy the dual gyro version and then go into Betaflight and turn off one of the gyros. And hey, boom, now you just got a free spare gyro. But maybe there's something I'm missing here. Nope. Looks the same. All right, anyway, there you go.
I guess you're choosing between 2 ICM 2602s versus 1 MPU 6000.
Oh, that's it. Oh, I see. Oh, that is way more interesting. Would you take an MPU 6000, which is widely believed to be like the best gyro for quadcopters or multi-rotors, or 2 ICM 2602s in a fusion? I think a lot of people would take the MPU 6000 all day.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm not sure that I've seen enough testing to know that one is better than the other, but I do know that the MPU 6000 is a super high quality gyro. So yeah, I would probably, after looking at that, I would probably pick the single.
Yeah. And I might do the same, especially because it is true that if you have 2 gyros, you're going to have the same failure rate, but you're going to experience twice as many failures because you have double the gyros. So you do see a lot of these dual gyro boards where one of the gyros goes bad, and you can turn it off, but then you're not getting the advantage of sensor fusion. So I might take the MPU 6000 as well, as long as it's still available.
So we'll move to Skyzone, who's got some new goggles out. 2 different sets of goggles we'll look at, the Sky02O and the Sky04L. So we've got some LCOS goggles, and we've got some
OLED
goggles. The word
Yeah.
I could not remember.
Yeah, so you could take your pick, a high-resolution goggle with an LCOS display or a pretty low-resolution goggle with an OLED display. The OLED one is way cheaper too. But regardless, I have full reviews of both of these goggles up on my channel, and I have a goggle buyer's guide. And rather than dive too in depth here, I'm going to let you take a look at those, and they're linked down below. Well, you can't talk about goggles without talking about antennas, and there's an interesting patch antenna that Foxeer is selling. They're calling it the Foxeer Oreo, which I'm pretty sure that's a trademark, but okay, whatever. Here it's for sale at Race Day Quads, but what makes this product cool is you can actually custom order it. I think you have to go to Foxeer to get the custom order. You can order it with any graphic you want. Is that right?
Yeah, you basically send them by email. You order this, and then you send them by email your order number and then a Adobe Illustrator file of the image that you want on the antenna. And they'll throw it on there and ship them to you.
Like Adobe Illustrator that I just have laying around. My Adobe Illustrator subscription. Okay, fair enough. So you have to have somebody make a graphic for you, basically.
Pretty
That's
much,
okay.
Yeah.
They say the performance is really good. Of course, they would say that. We haven't tested that, but it is pretty cool that you can just custom order this antenna with your own graphic on it. And if you're a pilot out there who's got a logo that somebody made for you, then go ask them if they can send the Illustrator files to Foxeer and get yourself a custom antenna. Pretty cool.
Yeah. So let's take a quick look at some antennas. So TrueRC has come out with a new version of their TrueRC Matchstick antenna, the Carbon Edition. So we can only assume that that is a better, more upgraded version of the old one that we can see.
Seems like it's saying it's got a carbon stem that's reinforced with a Kevlar coaxial cable with just enough flex. So this is the stiffer coax cable, I suppose. Whereas maybe these are just standard coax that's a little floppy. Same price. Looks like it's, oh, that's the long version. Maybe it's not the same price. I have mixed feelings about this stiff coax because what I've found is that it's not actually designed to be handled a lot. The stiff coax is used in the just the RF world, and it's designed to be sort of bent into shape and placed and stay there. And when you handle it a lot, it basically cracks the sheathing and it breaks. So
maybe that carbon fiber reinforcement will actually help with that issue.
Maybe, yeah. These are nonetheless, TrueRC makes great antennas. These are really nice little small antennas. Could certainly use them on a goggle, although I suspect I'd prefer a larger antenna on a goggle because they usually have better performance if you don't sacrifice for size. Pretty good for on a quadcopter. Do they have an MMCX version though? They don't, do they?
They do not.
I guess that's because of the coax they're using. So these would be goggle antennas pretty much. Let's move on now from antennas to motors. And Blunty, I always struggle with motors here because usually you have to fly motors to know a lot about them. But I always like to tell people, if new products are coming out. And one of the product categories that's been underrepresented has been 2004 motors. 2004 are such good motors for 4-inch freestyle. And basically the Brother Hobby 2004s have been just like the go-to. But there are some new 2004s coming out. Let's take a look at them. So here we've got the Diatone Mamba Toka 2004 and the Flash Hobby 2004. Do you remember when we had those Flash Hobby motors when they first came out?
Yeah, I believe they were green and black styled motors.
Yeah, in traditional sizes at a really budget price. Some people suggested that Flash Hobby was actually DYS, come back to life. Don't know if that's true. But now this is a new style. Almost looks like a Unibel design, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it is Unibel, unless there's some kind of editing in the picture there, which is pretty cool. For $15, getting a Unibel T-mount 2004 seems pretty positive.
Yeah. We've also got the Mamba Toka here. I'm always happy to see a new motor. These are great. First of all, these are beautiful motors. They're great looking motors. And 2004 is a size that needed some more examples, but I have seen so many pictures of these motors breaking right here at the spokes.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. I think the spoke design seems really prone to that cracking. And I've seen a lot of, I think there's like another version of the Toka of different sizes. That's the gray and black with red, I think. And yeah, I've seen a lot of pictures of those with just the center snapped out.
It's hard to know how much of that is just bad. I mean, everything's going to break somewhere. And when it breaks, people will complain about it on the internet. So it's hard to know if that means this is a weak spot. It is worth mentioning Diatone recently acknowledged that they were going to reinforce that, make it a little stronger on the next version of the motor. And we don't know whether that's true on this motor or not. Also, a 2004 motor is going to be a lot lighter and have a lot less mass on it and maybe be less likely to break. Yeah, call that out. But going back to the original 2004, at least the one that I first encountered, Brother Hobby also has a new line of 2004s, the TC line. And I honestly, Blunty, don't know what the difference is between the TC and their previous 2004s.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think maybe just wait. But I haven't, dove into the other ones. So,
see if I can find it. That's the Vi. Oh no, is that? This is the one I've been flying on my Shocker 4-inch. The Vi versus the TC. What's the difference? Let's see if we can figure it out right here on this, right here in the video. 14.9 grams. 14.9 grams.
Oh, okay.
7075 aluminum. Same bearing. Looks the same. It looks identical.
Not seeing the bolt patterns the same and everything. Yeah, I'm not seeing
price
anything.
Is the same.
There's 2 less motor holes on the TC. 2 less screw holes for the motor.
I mean, it's a different design of the bell. Is this a Unibel? This is not a Unibel. Is this one? No, it's not a Unibel.
Yeah, they look the same, just the one's green. Not sure.
All right, well, there you go. More spokes theoretically could make the bell more durable, although, yeah, at this size of motor, that's not usually how you're going to kill it, in my experience, because the quad is going to be pretty light. Designed for sub 250 gram racing or long range builds. There you go. Oh, they're saying this is for 5-inch. I don't know about that. I mean, I'm sure it'll do it, but if you know what the difference is between the Vi and the TC motor, other than the cosmetics, let us know down in the comments. We're going to move on.
All right, so let's take a look at a product that used to be a little more difficult to get, maybe a little more niche. So now you can get some cine lifters. We're looking at the Shendron Sicario and the Shendron Stick 2.0. Some different cine lifter frames meant for octo flight to carry some nice big cinematic cameras. That's what a cine lifter class does. So yeah, now you can get these at a more normal place for everybody. GetFPV or RDQ to throw on your normal order, and the availability is a little better.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't complain about ordering from, for example, Shendrones.com, Andy Shen's website. Obviously, it's a great store, but it's a little bit smaller and a little bit more niche. And I'm really happy. I'm just excited when I saw these in the new products listing. that just regular people who shop at race day quads are going to go, oh, what is a Sicario? What is a Cinelifter? And just be a little more exposed to this class of quad. It's super freaking cool, but obviously not everybody is going to be flying a $40,000 red Komodo. But if you are in the market for a Cinelifter and you like shopping at like GetFPV or race day quads, now they're starting to carry these. Well, if you do have one of these giant Cinelifters, you probably have some giant batteries to fly it with, and you might need a giant charger to go with it. This is the ISDT X16, an 1100 watt 20 amp charger for $700, $628, which confuses me a little bit, Blunty, because like there's the there's a 1000 watt ISDT charger. Is it the T8? Yeah, the ISDT T8. This is an Amazon listing. It's 1000 watts, 30 amps, I think. 30 amps, $120. Why is this one $600? I'm not actually sure.
16S maybe?
Oh, there you go. Oh, you got it. That's the answer. It goes up. So normally if you have one of these quads, if you do have a 12S quad, you'll have two 6S batteries, and then they will be wired up in series, and you'll just charge them as 6S. This charges up to 16S voltage natively. That's insane.
Also, it's got AC input, so I think that's also a benefit here. I'm not sure what it goes up to on AC, but that's also a bonus, so you don't have to run this with a secondary power supply.
Let's look at the specs. It just says max charging power 1100 watts times 2. It doesn't have a separate listing for DC versus AC.
Yeah, so they can do 20 amps on AC. That's pretty awesome. Because it's basically got the power supply inside of it.
It's got an 1100 watt power supply, which is that could be a $400 product on its own, depending on where you bought it. That's pretty freaking slick. All right, fair enough. I very few people out there who actually need this, but if you do need it, here it is. Let's take a look at some more normal sized ISDT chargers, Blunty. ISDT's got a new K series line. Let's see what you think of that. Have you seen these yet?
No, they have so many chargers. I feel like ISDT has so many options.
Yeah, they're definitely trying to hit all the price points and all the needs. Here we've got the K1, which is an AC/DC. So these are dual power. You can plug them into the wall or charge them off a battery or a DC power supply. 100 watt, 10 amp, or 250 watts on DC. This is a 200 and 500 watt. And that's probably mostly what you need to know about them. Balance current, only a half amp. That's a disappointing. Yeah. Would like to see here. This one has 1.5 amps per cell. If you want to know why the balance current is so important and why I would actually completely reject the K1 based on its 0.5 amp balance current, I have a video about why balance current is important. I'll put a link to that down in the video description.
So how does this stack up to something like the 608 AC? Like that's
which one? The K1?
Yeah, well, yeah, either one of these, I guess, because like the 608 AC, I think was $60. 50. Okay, I see. So it's the same on 60. DC, similar on DC.
Right.
8 amps versus 10 amps. I see. Okay.
Yeah, so if you're running it off a DC power supply, if you have one of those already, the 608 AC would make more sense because you'll get the same 200. Well, 200 versus 250 watts. It's not the same. It's pretty close though, and it's like 30% cheaper. My go-to.
In addition to the last one, you're kind of paying for extra power supply. So.
Yeah. Yep. I always compare things to the Hoda or HobbyMate D6, which is just my daily driver. $118 for a dual channel. This one is what is it? DC 325 watts times 2, AC 200 watts. Period. That's but only 15 amps. That's pretty comparable and a little cheaper, a little bigger. Yeah, anyway. There's one more that ISDT has come out with, which is the ISDT D2 Mark II. Now, this is a AC only, which is kind of weird, but like if you look in the back, it only runs off the wall. If you take it to the field, you couldn't run it off your car battery. You couldn't run it off a DC power supply. But it's $152 for 200 watts, 12 amps. That's actually...
Yeah, I think versus the last one you showed, versus that Hoda, I think that's going to be... It's kind of going to... The Hoda's going to kill it, basically.
Even versus the K2. Am I missing something? What am I missing? I must be missing something. Why would you ever buy the D2 Mark II over the K2?
Oh, I don't know. They're both dual channel too. Check the balance charge maybe to, let's see, balance current, or I guess the K2 can also do DC, but
exactly. The K2, if you plug it in the wall, you get 200 watts, 20 amps. The D2, you can only plug it into the wall and you get 200 watts, 12 amps.
Huh.
So why'd they bother updating this? I don't know.
Is it better at discharge? Yeah, discharge current's double, so that's something.
That's something.
Balance current is lower though.
I personally would think you should just buy the K2 and forget the D2 exists, but
yeah, I agree.
Or they should mark that one down. ISDT, why are you charging so much for the D2? What do you know that we don't know? Okay. We got just a couple other little odds and ends, Blunty, stuff that didn't fit anywhere else, but I thought was worth noting. And then we are going to go and talk about the giveaway. The first one is that the Fat Shark Shark Bite is now being carried at race day quads. Shark Bite has been sold by GetFPV and, of course, Rotor Riot, which is owned by Red Cat, the same company that now owns Fat Shark. But now they're also, I saw this in the new products listing I thought I'd mention. If you're a Race Day Quads customer and you want to buy Shark Bite stuff, now you can buy it there. This is a really freaking cool goggle wrap for your DJI goggles. So freaking cool. Looks so good.
Oh, wow. They have quite a few options. Yeah, these are pretty neat.
I mean, I don't know if I want that, but I'm so impressed by it. So, I mean, make your DJI goggles look just slightly less nerdy, I guess. That's available at GetFPV, $30 a pop, so not that cheap, but very good looking. And then finally, and this is such a dumb thing to have on a product roundup, but I saw it in GetFPV's new product listing, and I need these so often and don't have them. These little, they have a 3mm and a 5mm spacer. They're threaded. I actually kind of prefer the non-threaded version, but either way. And they really help your stack look neater and nicer than just like jamming washers in or something. So I wanted to mention that. Get those at GetFPV. You get them all over the place, but GetFPV. So. No, all right. There's only one thing to do, and that's to decide what product we're going to give away this week. What do you think, Blunty? You got any ideas? Anything stand out to you? I always ask you that.
Yeah, not offhand this week or this month. Not really.
What would you? I'll tell you, if you were going to win the prize, what would you be most happy to win? Let's put it that way.
Yeah, you're right. The Firefly. You have to give Fireflies away, right?
We're going to give away. They're 100 and how much are they?
These are the iNav version. Do we want to do iNav or the regular? I didn't even realize there were two versions.
It doesn't really matter. I mean, we can ship either version. They could always reflash it if they want to. Looks like 4 of those are going to be $700 plus shipping. That sounds about right.
I think the iNav comes with that compass.
Oh, well, you want the iNav version, don't you?
Yeah.
I guess it'd be harder to put a GoPro on top if you got that GPS up there. Well, we'll figure it out. We'll let them pick the iNav or the BetaFlight version. Yeah, we'll let them pick. But that's what we're going to give away. We're going to give away 4 of those to 4 separate winners. If you want to know how to enter, go down in the video description, and there are instructions at the bottom of the video description of how to enter. There's a link to a Google form that you go and you put your name and your email address in the Google form. And I'm not going to sign you up for any. We just use it to notify that you won. And then I delete them all at the end of the month. So don't worry about that. Full terms and conditions are down below. And the winner will be announced in a community post and by email, among others. So that's going to do it, Blunty. Thank you. I got to get out of here, Blunty. I'm going to Rampage. I'm literally leaving as soon as I get all my shit in my car. I'm going to Rampage.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you have fun. I'm glad we were able to get this all recorded.
Yeah, thank you. And I will see you next month and next Tuesday as well for the news. All right.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
See you later, everybody. What are you still doing here? The video's over. Do you watch all the videos all the way to the end? Wow. You are a super fan. Thank you. That actually helps the channel a lot when you watch the videos all the way to the end. YouTube loves that. You know what else YouTube loves? When you subscribe. Or when you join my Patreon for as little as $2 a month or more if you feel like I've earned. Actually, YouTube doesn't like you to join my Patreon. They don't get a cut of that.